Everybody. So here's what I've got for today. We are going to work on the back cover and how to design that. And so all of your additions are down here, or most of them. And so there's several that are going to be added. The background image, you make sure you have a picture of your band or artist or rapper or whatever. Record label, proof of purchase, copyright. I'll add all of these things. A list of songs. Sides include name, album, and record label, and that'll be here and there. And then extra small details to make the case look authentic. So I'm going to walk you through that. I'm trying to save some time, so I've added a couple of these in right here. Now, when we get started, we're going to go File, Place Embedded, and then I'm going to add this picture in. Okay, so you've got a couple different options for this. What I'm going to end up doing is just making this picture larger. And so we'll figure out the exact right size for it. And so I'm going to pull from here, pull from the corner, and then there we go. Hit return. Now I could have it in the center, but the problem with having it in the center is I've got to have my list of songs. Now if I want my list of songs down here, that's fine, but I don't want to cover up his face. So I'm going to move this over probably to about here. I think that's pretty good. Okay, now I'm going to move it down just a little bit so I can see where my edges are. Now I've got to rasterize this picture so I can edit the photo. And then I'm going to delete this area. Press delete. And then delete this area. Just delete. Okay. Then I'm going to move this picture up to here. Now, some of the things that we also want to do is we want to make sure we edit this photo. So I'm going to go image. Let's see, get the layer selected. We're going to go image, adjustments, and then hue saturation. Now, if I just move this, here's what happens, right? Which is kind of funky, doesn't really make sense. So then I'm going to kind of stick with what I was doing before. And then I'm going to have more of like a brownish color to it, that style that we had on the front and inside covers. Okay, so I've got something like that. Then I want to go on a new layer, and I want to make these areas and cover those in. And so I'm going to go with the color, let's go eyedropper, go with something like this, but I want to go a little bit darker, so it's still like a darker brown. And then instead of the gradient, I'm going to paint bucket. There we go. And then I'm using the rectangle marquee, and I'm just going to slide that over. Now I'm holding the shift key as I do this, so it slides over better. Okay? And then paint bucket again. There we go. So that part's taken care of. Now, the next thing I want to do is add my list of songs. So I started by typing it already. Now I'm going to move this up to here, and so I can see it better. So now here's my list of songs. Okay, now it's kind of hard to see the way it's written right now, and the spacing looks terrible. So I'm going to go into Window, Character, and now I've got my character window here. So I'm going to change the spacing so they get closer together. So we're going to go to about 18. Okay, pretty decent. And then I want to make it fill the space a little bit better. Okay, so I've got something like that. Now, right now, it's selected and it's over his head, which looks kind of weird. So I'm going to highlight all of it. I can center it, or I can go right margin. So I'm going to try right margin for this one, and I'm going to move this over to here. Okay, so the spacing feels a little bit better. I don't like this part right here. So I've got two options. I could either copy this, move it down so it fills the space a little bit better there, or I could just shrink it down. So if I shrink it down, there we go. Okay, and that's just fine. Okay, so now I have this. My other option would be to highlight this, go edit, cut, delete, and then I'm just going to paste it right there. So that works better too. So we've got a couple options for how to go about that, and then I can still make it a little bit bigger. Now, the font that I want to use, I'm going to go with something a little bit brighter. Let's go with a color like this. There we go. Okay, so now I've got that. Now I want to go back into my layers window, and usually I'll have to go window layers to pop it open. And then I'm going to go into effects, and I'm going to add a drop shadow so it pops out a little bit better. So you see how it's standing out a little bit more? I can change my size, and then it can pop out a little bit more that way. Or I can go with an outer glow, and now it pops out a lot better. So you just got to be careful where it doesn't go too much, but you can see how that stands out a lot better. Okay, so I'm going to click OK. And so that part's done. Now, the next thing is I want to add all of these. Now I've already added them in, but I need to add, let's see here, barcode, and I got to pull that above there. So here's my barcode. So I'm going to leave that as is right there. Okay. This font, I want to space this a little bit, so I want to leave a little gap right in there. And I'll come back to that in a little bit. Now my piracy logo here. Now I've got to rasterize all of these layers. So right click, rasterize, and now I can directly edit these photos. So when I go into this one, let's zoom in a little bit here. And I'm going to use the magic wand. Now I'm going to click on, uncheck this contiguous box. And I'm going to press, so I click on the white area and press delete. So now it gets rid of everything. Okay, works pretty slick. Okay. And then what I'm going to end up doing here is I'm going to go color overlay. And then change this color to this one so it matches. Okay. Then in here, I'm going to click on this picture. And if I select this white, now it selects all the white, which is what I don't want. So I'm going to check this contiguous box, and I'm just going to select this section right here, delete, this section here, delete, this section there, delete. Okay, so that part's done. Then I've got this Capitol Records, here we go, and I want to option, so I'm pressing the option key or alt if you're using a Chromebook, and I copy that on there. Okay, then with this copyright logo, let's go select this area, press delete, select this area, delete, 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 delete. Okay, and again, I want this to be like that, so it's the same color. Now, everything doesn't stand out perfectly like I'd like it to, and so I'm going to add a couple little extra additions to this that'll look actually really cool. Okay, so I'm going to start with this. I'm going to do this copyright. Now, I want all of you to end up doing something like this. And so for this one, I'm calling it 2020 Cochrane. And so this is my copyright. I want my name and the assignment on there, and I want them to match a little bit better. Okay, and then this copyright might be a little bit big, so I'm going to shrink it down. So I do really want to make sure that you get rid of all those crazy details on there, like the white boxes around them, except for this. That one can stay. Okay, now it's coming along pretty nicely. So what I want to do now is I'm going to add a new layer to this. And I want to fade in this background area. And so as I do this, here's what's going to happen. So I want to make a rectangle marquee on a new layer. Make sure you do it on a new layer. And then I'm going to go into my gradient tool. And I'm going to go black to white. And I've got this default. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to have this little gradient. Now, it might look weird, but as I add this below some of these, it'll look really good. And so now, look what happens. So now I've got this piece added. If I change the opacity to 0, you can see how my text is now standing out a lot better. Okay? Now, I added that. Now, here's the mistakes that I get students that make. They, oh, okay, I'm going to add a gradient like what I saw in the sample. So then they go like this. Okay, well now it covers that whole area. The reason is you've got to make sure that you add a rectangle marquee in that box right there. Another mistake I get students that make is, let's see here, gradient. They get something like this one, and it's black to white, and then they do this. Well, now it's like that. Well, you can't have black to white. You've got to have that black to checkerboard, so it goes from black to fades to nothing. Okay, so I'm going to get the right one here. Okay, so again, make sure that you make the rectangle marquee. Whoops, that doesn't work. Get the right one selected. And so I've got the rectangle marquee here. Okay, that looks pretty good. Excellent. I've got a new layer selected, and then I've got my black to checkerboard. Now I'm going to add this down here too. And watch what happens to where it says capital and compact disc. Watch how much this pops out. Okay, you see that? It's pretty sweet. So I just added a little gradient right there to darken that area down there. Okay, now the last couple of steps. So I'm really close to being finished here. I've got my image, I've got the text, and everything looks really good. I'm going to type Zach Brown Band, and then I'm going to change the font of it, or change the color, and so it's going to be the same as this. Okay, and let's zoom in a little bit so I can see it better. There we go. Yeah, let's go back up. Okay, so I want to make this, I want to rotate it. Now if I hold the shift key, it goes to perfect angle. Now it's not showing up, but don't worry about it, that's okay. Move it over. There we go. And then I need to move this up higher. Let's get this the right size here. There we go. Okay, so I've got that part. And now the spacing is a little bit better. Now I'm going to copy this because when I copy this, I want to be able to write Jekyll and Hyde. Now, right on here, the plus sign doesn't show up. So I've got to find a different font. So there we go to use. Now it shows up. Okay. Now I've got that part done, but I want to change this color here because I don't like this color. So I want to go a little bit darker and watch what happens. There we go. Okay, so now we can see a slight difference between these two. So I can move this over this way here. And then I've got the Jekyll and Hyde. I'm going to move that there. Let me make this down a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to take Capitol Records, move that here, rotate it, and I'm almost done with this. And so on the sides, I want to make sure that you add in that little extra detail of the record label. It's just those subtle additions that make it look really good. So now, here we go. I've got that. Press Shift and add to that selection, and then that. Now I'm pressing the Option key or Alt if you're on a PC, and I'm going to rotate these. Hold Shift, move this over to right there, so these borders are about finished. There we go. And now I am done with my back cover. So you see how much is involved in that? And that's it. So this is the process that is involved in making your back cover. So add all of these, make sure you look at all of these and add these details in there, and you'll have a really cool looking back cover. So good luck with you in making these edits, and have fun with this one because it's kind of a fun back cover with typography and imagery.